Divrei-HaYamim bet. 2 Chronicles, chapter 30. Then Hizkiyahu sent to all Israel and Yehuda, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, summoning them to the house of Adonai in Yerushalayim, to keep the Pesach to Adonai the God of Israel. For the king, his officials, and the entire Yerushalayim community had agreed to keep the Pesach in the 2nd month. They had not been able to observe it at the proper time, because the Kohanim had not consecrated themselves in sufficient number. Also, the people had not assembled in Yerushalayim. The idea that had seemed right to the king and to the whole community, so they issued a decree that it should be proclaimed throughout all Israel, from Beersheba to Dan, that they should come to keep the Pesach to Adonai the God of Israel at Yerushalayim, for only a few had been observing it as prescribed. So runners went with the letters from the king and his officers throughout all Israel and Yehuda. They conveyed the king's order: "People of Israel, turn back to Adonai, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Then he will return to those of you who remain, who escaped capture by the kings of Ashur. Don't be like your ancestors, or like your kinsmen who sinned against Adonai, the God of their ancestors, with the result that he allowed them to become an object of horror, as you see. Don't be stiff-necked now, as your ancestors were. Instead, yield yourselves to Adonai, enter his sanctuary, which he has made holy forever, and serve Adonai your God, so that his fierce anger will turn away from you. For if you turn back to Adonai, your kinsmen and children will find that those who took them captive will have compassion on them, and they will come back to this land. Adonai your God is compassionate and merciful. He will not turn his face away from you if you return to him." So the runners passed from city to city through the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, as far as Zebulun, but the people laughed at them and made fun of them. Nevertheless, some from Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun were humble enough to come to Yerushalayim. Also in Yehuda the hand of God was at work, uniting their hearts to do what the king and the leaders had ordered in accordance with the word of Adonai. Thus many people assembled in Yerushalayim to keep the festival of Matzot in the 2nd month, a huge crowd. First they set about removing the altars that were in Yerushalayim, and they also removed all the altars for incense and threw them in Vadi Kidron. Then they slaughtered the Pesach lamb on the 14th day of the 2nd month. Ashamed of themselves, the Kohanim and Leviim had consecrated themselves and brought burnt offerings into the house of Adonai. Now they stood at their stations, as prescribed in the Torah of Moshe, the man of God. The Kohanim splashed the blood given to them by the Leviim, for there were many in the assembly who had not consecrated themselves. Therefore the Leviim were responsible for slaughtering the Pesach lambs and consecrating them to Adonai on behalf of everyone who was not clean. For a large number of the people, especially from Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, but ate the Pesach lamb anyway, despite what is written. For Hizkiyahu had prayed for them, "May Adonai, who is good, pardon everyone who sets his heart on seeking God, Adonai, the God of his ancestors, even if he hasn't undergone the purification prescribed in connection with holy things." Adonai heard Hizkiyahu and healed the people. The people of Israel there in Yerushalayim observed the festival of Matzot for 7 days with great joy, while every day the Leviim and Kohanim praised Adonai, singing to Adonai with the accompaniment of loud instruments. Hizkiyahu spoke encouragingly to all the Leviim, who were well skilled in the service of Adonai. Thus they ate throughout the festival for the 7 days, offering sacrifices for peace offerings, and giving thanks to Adonai, the God of their ancestors. Then the whole assembly decided to celebrate for yet another 7 days, and they observed those 7 days too with joy. For Hizkiyahu, king of Yehuda, gave the assembly 1,000 bulls and 7,000 sheep for offerings, while the leaders gave the assembly 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep, and great numbers of Kohanim consecrated themselves. All the people who had assembled from Yehuda rejoiced, as did the Kohanim and Leviim, those assembled from Israel, and the foreigners who had come from the territory of Israel or who lived in Yehuda. So there was great joy in Yerushalayim, For since the time of Shlomo, the son of David, king of Israel, there had been nothing like it in Yerushalayim. Then the Kohanim, who were Levaim, stood up and blessed the people. Adonai heard their voice, and their prayer came up to the holy place where he lives, heaven. End of 2 Chronicles chapter 30.